Good evening. Welcome to ITV News. This is Monday night's calendar.
And here are tonight's main stories.
Hospital neglect after health bosses admit serious failings in the care of a woman who died after developing sepsis. Her family speak out in the hope of saving others.
Why weren't the stents taken out?
And would she have still been here if they were removed, changed, whatever they would have done? Most probably, yeah.
Memorial match. A father draws strength from South Yorkshire's outpouring of love and support in the names of his two young children so brutally taken from him.
I don't think they'll realise how much strength they give me. I'm lucky that I'm surrounded by lovely and caring people.
Training the troops. The Ukrainian military medics getting specialist training at a facility in North Yorkshire.
And do you fancy a night at the cinema? Well, join me at one of the country's oldest picture houses, which is about to reopen 109 years after it screened its first film.
But first tonight, to the message from the grieving family of a woman who died at a Sheffield hospital after what should have been routine 6-monthly medical procedures were missed for 3 years. 64-year-old Sue Bamford developed sepsis when staff at Northern General Hospital failed to replace essential kidney stents. An inquest found she died in 2021 as a result of the hospital's neglect. Well, now her family are urging stent patients to come forward and get themselves checked and potentially save other lives. Astrid Quinn has this report.
For 3 years, Sue's overdue operation went unnoticed. After being diagnosed with cancer in 2018, she was fitted with kidney stents, something that should have been replaced every 6 months. But her appointment slipped through the hospital's system until it was too late.
They phoned me and said, they've took your mum into hospital, and that was it. It was just like she was in resus and it was just all happening so quick. They said that she'd got a serious infection. They didn't really know what was causing it at the time. Her kidneys weren't very good. Yeah, it was just so quick, like literally within 3 days she weren't here.
It was hard, especially going home to an empty house. And she's not there.
Sue's family were left without answers, only discovering her kidney stents were to blame when they were handed her death certificate.
Oh, we were left with lots of questions, because where did the sepsis come from, for a start? And why weren't the stents taken out?
And would she have still been here if they were removed, changed, whatever they would have done? Most probably, yeah.
It took over a year for those questions to be answered. In March, a coroner found Sue died as a result of neglect by the hospital after they failed to change her stents. Her family are now fighting to raise awareness of just how vital it is to replace them.
If you have had any kidney stents fitted or any procedure done, just make sure you follow it up, because there's still time to get them removed. Just because my mum's were in that long and it was too late, don't mean that it's not too late for anybody else.
So if you have, for instance, a hip transplant, there is a national register of people who've had a device put in place with a stent like the type Sue had. Certainly there wasn't at the time a national database for that. There are still patients out there that aren't known about who've had stents like these put in place, who may be walking around and don't know that they should be replaced regularly.
Sheffield Teaching Hospitals Foundation Trust said, "We fully accept that there were serious lapses in the care in which Mrs. Bamford received. A full review has already been conducted to limit the chances of this happening again." The Trust said that changes have already been made and that a new tracking process has been introduced to ensure that patients are followed up within a timely manner.
For Sue, the new measures came all too late, but her family are determined to keep raising awareness to stop others from slipping through the net. Astrid Quinn, ITV News, Sheffield.
Next tonight, the father of 2 children who were killed in the Kilmarsh area of Sheffield almost 2 years ago has praised family and friends for saving his life as he staged a fundraiser in their memory. John Bennett, who was 13, and his 11-year-old sister Lacey were murdered along with their mother Terry Harris and friend Connie Gent in September 2021.
Well, John and Lacey's dad Jason took to the field in Sheffield for a match in aid of the Youth Cancer Trust, which the children had wanted to support before they died. Jonathan Brown was there for us.
Living out a footballing dream after living through every parent's worst nightmare. Taking to the pitch to play against his childhood sporting heroes, Jason Bennett led out a team of his friends and family called A Dad Forever United. People he says he owes his life to.
I don't think they'll realise how much strength they give me. I'm lucky that I'm surrounded by lovely and caring people.
It's been almost 2 years since Jason lost his children. John, who was 13, and his 11-year-old sister Lacey were murdered in September 2021. Damien Bendel killed them, their mum Terry Harris and their friend Connie Gent. He's now serving 5 whole life sentences.
Go back to my darkest days. I tried taking my own life, but I'm a suicide survivor, and I'm going to keep the promise I gave to my children. I'll live their love through me. I'm still here, and look what we're doing.
On Saturday, hundreds of people descended on the Jubilee Sports Club to show their support for a footballing fundraiser with John and Lacey at its heart. The charity to benefit one that was close to theirs.
Selling bubblegum, bubbles, have a good day.
In their last video call to their dad, they told him they were planning to sell sweets in aid of the Youth Cancer Trust, which provides support and holidays for young people living with the disease. Jason's friends and family took on a cast of Sheffield Wednesday legends. Former England players Chris Waddle and Carlton Palmer among the stars. Although it was Jason and his loved ones, many were there to cheer on.
By continuing to making positives for John and Lacey's legacy to live on, that's the absolute focus. I think it's brilliant, absolutely fantastic turnout for an absolutely fantastic cause.
Couldn't believe what we did over at News and where have you, it were awful. I think Jay's done a really, really good job for his son and daughter.
To be here to support my brother and sister means so much, and I'll forever be grateful.
Yeah, he's a great lad, I've had a good chat with him. He's battling through, he's got a lot of people around him, good people around him. And again, he's decided to have this match for a good cause. And, thank you everybody for turning up. They know it's a special day, and they've made it a special day. Got to thank them a lot.
For Jason, the huge turnout and thousands raised through the game and post-match auction were a display of togetherness he'll never forget.
How can I not be inspired by this? Negative anger, that doesn't help. It doesn't help whatsoever, and it won't help me, and I won't let it be part of me. Positive moving forward. And that's what I'm going to do.
That positivity, he says, will mean helping others. His motivation to do more in honour of his children only strengthened in the knowledge of just how many people are there to support him. Jonathan Brown, ITV News, Sheffield.
And of course, we continue to wish Jason all the best. And if you've been affected by anything in Jonathan's report there, or you want help and advice to access mental health support services, you can visit itv.com/Britain Get Talking.
You're watching Monday's calendar, and still to come. Curtain up, we get a look around the spruced up historic Hyde Park Picture House in Leeds as it gets set to reopen.
And lots of sunshine around as we started the week. A few heavy showers in the mix, but generally dry. Things taking a bit of a turn, though, as we head into tomorrow. I'll have more on that later in the programme.
Well, next tonight, Harrison Ballantyne should have just finished his A-levels with his whole life ahead of him. But exactly 6 years ago tomorrow, at the age of just 11, he was electrocuted on a railway line and died.
His mother is now leading a new safety campaign ahead of the summer holidays. She hopes that by telling Harrison's story, it'll help other children understand the dangers around railway tracks. James Webster has been to meet her.
Harrison was lively, he was sporty, he had a large group of friends. You know, what happened to Harrison couldn't have been any more innocent. He had planned to go out with a group of his mates on an adventure, which is what I encouraged.
Exactly 6 years on, it is still painful for Liz Ballantyne to retell what happened to her 11-year-old son.
My name is Harrison Ballantyne, and I did not expect to die today.
It is a story which has been made into a powerful video, which is at the centre of a new summer safety campaign.
Didn't expect today would be my last day at school.
Young actors are seen retracing Harrison's final day out with his friends when they lost their football near a railway track.
I didn't even notice the power lines, but I didn't touch them. I didn't expect electricity to just jump at me through the air. Didn't expect to die today.
They told me that I couldn't identify him, but it never actually sunk in. I couldn't identify him because he was unidentifiable. So that's, you know, the reality of that. My brain only realised that quite a while afterwards. And his friends had seen him. And they have to live with that for the rest of their lives.
Last year in Yorkshire and northern Lincolnshire, there were 434 cases of children found trespassing on railway tracks. A further 160 happened on the East Coast Main Line, which passes through our region. Across the country, more than 3,500 cases were reported, and although down on the previous year, it is a number that remains higher than it was before the pandemic.
Harrison Ballantyne was just an 11-year-old boy, didn't understand the danger surrounding him when he crossed the boundary onto the railway, and he was just going to collect his ball. So once you walk onto the rail infrastructure, you are surrounded by a dangerous environment. Anybody could walk onto the rail infrastructure, and it's really important that they understand the danger that they're putting themselves in when they do that.
Didn't expect to be the last time I hung out with my mates. No, I wish I hadn't now. I wish they hadn't all been with me when I died.
That was Harrison and the boys that he was with. It was reenacting the day that he died, and that's a tough reenactment, but it needed to be done.
Liz Ballantyne is determined to use her loss to help keep other children safe.
You know, I wonder what he would look like. I wonder how tall he would be. I wonder what he would be doing with his life right now, because he would have just finished his A-levels. So many questions, so many things that I wish I knew.
Yeah, very brave Liz Ballantyne, the mother of Harrison, speaking to us there, talking to our reporter James Webster. And tomorrow night, James will be finding out how new technology is being used to keep children safe on the railways.
Well, more of the day's news now, and a body's been found near Chesterfield in the search for a missing woman from Derbyshire who's believed to have been murdered. Sarah Henshaw hadn't been seen since last Tuesday at her home in Ilkeston. Police today confirmed they had found a body thought to be Sarah just after midnight this morning in a lay-by near junction 29 of the M1. A man arrested on suspicion of the 31-year-old's murder remains in police custody.
A man from Rotherham has appeared in court today charged with possession of an explosive substance after police searched a house in the town. 41-year-old Brett Ainley of Treefield Close in Wingfield appeared before magistrates in Sheffield after police found what they believed to be explosive devices on Friday. The bomb squad was called and a police cordon remained in place throughout the day.
Staff working for the Yorkshire Ambulance Service, who are members of the Unite union, are into the fourth hour of a 7-hour strike. It's part of an ongoing dispute over pay and follows their rejection of a 5% pay offer, which the government has said is fair and reasonable. People are being asked to only call 999 for an ambulance in life-threatening situations until the strike ends at 10 tonight.
Sanctions imposed on Yorkshire Cricket Club over the racism scandal will be revealed tomorrow. The club could face a fine or have points deducted. The recommendations will come at a disciplinary hearing in London. The charges admitted by Yorkshire came after former player Azim Rafiq spoke about racial harassment and bullying he'd suffered whilst at the club. As tensions continue to mount over the Russian invasion of Ukraine, British soldiers in North Yorkshire have been teaching vital survival techniques to troops from Kyiv.
The fighters learning medical techniques on our soil say they believe it'll help win them a crucial advantage in the conflict. Chris Conway reports.
Outgunned and under fire from dummy bullets. These Ukrainian soldiers quickly take casualties in the remote North Yorkshire countryside. This is only an exercise and not one in tactics. Instead, soldiers like Ruslan, speaking through a translator, say they need to hone their life-saving medical skills.
I think that training that we gone through here, my fellow comrades, boys and girls, they will improve our knowledge and abilities, and we'll be able to save more lives.
The exercise, another example of support for Ukraine, following donations of UK weapons and battle vehicles to the country.
For them it's different, it's their home, it's almost like Britain in World War II, I suppose. That's the only thing we have that's comparable to it. But the reality is, you know, they're fighting for the homeland, they're fighting for their freedom, so to speak, and it's been a privilege to train them.
This exercise is the first of its kind ever to be carried out. There'll be 49 Ukrainian students taking part, and it's the first of 3 of these courses which will be run alongside the UK's international partners, all assisting the Ukrainians in learning key life-saving techniques. The thinking behind involving international medics is that even the most experienced can learn something.
From the international point of view, we are all schooled in the same syllabus, so the TCCC. We still have our own views and maybe just small changes in how we view things.
The 5-week exercise has only further fueled dreams of peace within the Ukrainian ranks.
We will rebuild everything that was destroyed. For 100%, we will return our land, our borders.
The Ukrainian soldiers here are targets for Russian personnel because of their value as frontline medics. But they say their time learning new battlefield techniques have made them more determined than ever to win the war. Chris Conway, ITV News.
Well, the ITV Evening News continues here at 6:30. Here's a look at what's happening with Gamal Fambula.
The Met Police names a 6th suspect in the murder of Stephen Lawrence 30 years on. It has also apologised for mistakes made in the original investigation. We'll have reaction from Stephen's father. Also ahead, an inquest opens to resolve the mysteries around the death of Nicola Bulley. A pledge from a prince, William, on his mission to end homelessness. And another crack of the whip for Indiana Jones. Join me for those stories and more at 6:30.
Thanks, Gamal. Now, post offices provide important face-to-face services for our communities. In Yorkshire and northern Lincolnshire, there are more than 950 of them. But now one of the services they provide is under threat.
Yes, earlier this month it was agreed that the Post Office will continue to provide DVLA services such as driving licence renewals and vehicle tax until next year. But there's uncertainty about what will happen after that contract comes to an end, as Katie Ridley explains.
Oh yes, of course. It's not just for sending letters and parcels. The local post office plays a vital role in supporting the community and offering services that would otherwise need to be accessed online.
So today, DVLA services are provided at 5,500 post offices. We do licence renewals in person, face-to-face. We stock the forms if people want to apply by post. You can tax your vehicle, so take in your renewal from the DVLA and pay in person. And we also do international driving permits.
Earlier this month, the DVLA agreed to extend its contract with the Post Office to provide these face-to-face services until the end of March next year. But there are growing concerns that when it's up, that contract will not be renewed at all. The DVLA says it wants its services to be accessible as quickly and as easily as possible. But this post office in Huddersfield worries that services could be moved online, leaving some customers isolated.
Pretty much disastrous, really, because DVLA and the government should really realise that there are a lot of people that don't use online services, and even more so as well that you hear stories where people have cancelled their broadband as well, and that's going the opposite way, I think.
Anthony has used the service before to renew his driving licence and says he'd be lost without it.
I find it so much more comforting to come and actually meet someone and talk to them face to face, because then if I have any problems, they can give me the answers I need to hear immediately and not wait for loads of time online while, someone actually answers the phone or is prepared to speak to me.
The future of the DVLA services is currently unknown, with a growing pressure on the government to provide more clarity over what will happen next.
10 million people in this country don't have digital access today. They don't have online access. Those people will have no alternative if there is no face-to-face service provision made by government or the DVLA come next spring.
The government, which is responsible for the DVLA, says face-to-face post office services will form part of its decision-making next year. Those customers who rely on in-person interaction, so they hope it won't bring another bitter blow to community services. Katie Ridley, ITV News.
Now, with some sad news to bring you, and the Sheffield Steelers ice hockey team have announced the death of one of their players at the age of just 20. Alex Graham, seen here scoring his first professional goal at the age of 17, was described as a rising star of the game. He'd only recently signed his first professional contract. The club said it was heartbroken by the news of his death at the weekend.
There were mixed fortunes for two of our region's football teams at the FA Disability Cup finals at the weekend. Farsley Celtic were beaten in the final of the Deaf Cup by St John's. 3-0 was the final score there. But there was better news for the North East and Yorkshire Cerebral Palsy team, who beat Norwich City 4-0 to win their final for the third consecutive year.
Finally from us tonight, what's believed to be the world's last remaining gaslit cinema is to reopen in Leeds this week after a £4 million restoration.
Yes, the Hyde Park Picture House has been described as a little gem. It's more than a century old and it's been closed for 3 years of works. Well, it's going to reopen on Friday with many of its original features spruced up and a whole lot more. John Hill's been for a sneak preview.
Well, we know the fate of many of our classic old picture palaces. They became bingo halls or even carpet warehouses, but not the Hyde Park Picture House. Newly restored and preserved and open for generations of cinema goers to come. Well, we've come into the circle of the cinema, and you know it's been described as one of the cosiest in the country because, in fact, it's only 232 seats. As you can see down, the sweep of the auditorium, strange to think it's been here, isn't it, since 1914. And here's one of the features, the landmark features. This is one of 9 gas lights which were installed back in the day, really to stop canoodling couples, because instead of being in pitch black, the ushers and usherettes and perhaps the powers that be on top didn't want people, well, getting enthusiastic, so there were these modesty lamps which ensured a sort of dim lighting and made sure nothing untoward happened. Well, Wendy Cook is head of cinema here. Wendy, this has been a big project, but a big project for you as well, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's something I'm incredibly proud of. We started working on it back in 2014 when the cinema hit its centenary, which was, we took a giant breath of release then. It was a big accomplishment, but then it was okay, how do we get to the next centenary? And I think that's when we really started to think about what was the ambitious next step we needed to take to try and preserve this special building.
It's taken longer than anticipated, obviously because of the pandemic, but what are the unique features? We've talked about the gas lamps, what else?
There are so many incredible heritage features right throughout the building. One of my personal favourites is the terrazzo floor that you have outside the entranceway, but also in the foyer, which has been covered since the 1950s. There's also the incredible plasterwork right in the front of the balcony, these beautiful swathes of roses and garlands, and I think these lovely details that just make it feel so special.
And here's the strange thing, this was opened in 1914, we were at war. You'd think on the face of it, what a bonkers time. In fact, look at this newsreel. This shows the Lord Mayor of Leeds inspecting troops from the Leeds Pals Battalion up in the Yorkshire Dales. So you might have had people coming to see, well, maybe their son, training to go to war, but seeing it here on the newsreel.
I think cinema had such an important role back in 1914 and beyond. I think, yes, it was vital in terms of people finding out what was happening at the front, but also for those stuck at home, we could help kind of lift people's spirits, provide entertainment and distraction when people desperately needed to try and stop dwelling on the horrible circumstances.
It's amazing that it's still here. Wendy, I know it's been a labour of love for you. You started, flogging sweets here 20 years ago?
Exactly.
You've come a long way, and so has the cinema. It will reopen. There are a few finishing touches, but it will reopen on Friday with Wes Anderson's Asteroid City, but it's fully booked. So have a look at your What's On guide for what's coming up later on.
Oh, I was excited there, and then you said it was fully booked.
Well, I know, but now it's going to be open again. Isn't it funny how 1914, bit of escapism, very important role that it's played, just as important now that it's reopening.
And to think you actually have to go to the cinema to find out what the news was.
Exactly, yes, and now we just come into your living room, whether you want us or not.
Yeah, what a treat for you, I'm sure. Now then, let's get the weather forecast, find out what's happening. Here's Ross Hutchinson with the details.
Good visibility on the horizon. Tiri, sponsors ITV Yorkshire Weather.
Hello, good evening. A sunny start to the week for the most part. We have seen a few showers dotted around. Still temperatures on the warm side. Not as hot, not as humid as we had it over the weekend. So mild again overnight. But then things will start to change. Instead of showers, we're seeing patchy rain arriving from the west. Sometimes on the heavy side, more in the way of cloud. Setting the tone through the next few days, we are going to see some sunny spells. But generally, it is staying rather unsettled. The reason for that, this area of low pressure here. So it's moving its way in from the west. Around that, we do have several fronts, so bringing that rain through the day tomorrow. It will be patchy. It'll clear away out towards the east through the later part of the day, but again into Wednesday there's another front moving its way through, bringing some showers, sometimes longer spells of rain. But in all of this, those temperatures actually holding up about right for the time of year. So for now, as we head through this evening and overnight, still a few showers dotted around over the next hour or so. Those will tend to disappear. As we head through the late evening, overnight into the early hours, the cloud is slowly starting to increase, a sign of things to come. And thanks to that warm air that's over the UK at the moment, temperatures holding up at around 13 or 14 degrees. So certainly for some more built up areas, for towns and cities, a little bit on the muggy side. Make our way into tomorrow morning, the cloud quite quickly starting to thicken. We are seeing some brighter breaks around first thing, but you can see that rain edging its way in from the west. Certainly as we head into the afternoon, some brighter colours in the mix there showing we are going to get some heavier downpours. Although despite that lack of sunshine, temperatures holding up at around 19 or 20 degrees. Through Tuesday and into Wednesday, as I say, that bulk of rain does start to pull away. Wednesday morning, some brighter breaks around, still some rain moving through, although temperatures holding up. A similar story through the next few days.
TUI sponsors ITV Yorkshire Weather.
Hello, summer. Piri sponsors ITV Pollen Count.
Our grass and nettle pollen levels have been peaking over recent weeks up to very high through the next few days, with things being a bit more unsettled, dropping down a little bit. High generally, very high though, as we head into Thursday. Have a good evening.
Thank you very much, Ross. Little bit of change afoot then, but still not cooling off much at night, is it?
It certainly isn't, and certainly not in the back row of that cinema either, was it? I'm still thinking of those canoodling couples.
Speak for yourself.
That's it. I'll be back with the late news from all of us here. A very good night.
Bye-bye.